On Tuesday the 4th of July earlier this year, a 16-year-old Mormon named Jarrett Brooks left his home in Arizona during the early hours of the morning, but tragically, he hasn't been seen or heard from since. After discovering that their son had not returned home later that day, Jarrett's parents decided to file a runaway juvenile report with the Navajo County Sheriff's Office, expecting the police to find him within just a few days. But after almost 4 months of searching, the Brooks family are still no closer to finding their missing son, which has led many to wonder, could Jarrett Brooks be the next victim of the Arizona desert? Jarrett Thomas Brooks was born on the 7th of December in 2006 to his parents Laura and Brian Brooks. The young man grew up in a small settlement named Joseph City in Arizona, where he was the middle child of a very large family consisting of 7 kids. The close-knit family would always spend a lot of time together due to the fact that the children were homeschooled and would only tend to leave the house for chores and other educational activities. Joseph City is known to be the oldest Mormon settlement in the state of Arizona, famously named after their prophet Joseph Smith. So as far as Laura and Brian were concerned, this was the perfect place to start a family. During his younger years, Jarrett was described as an exceptionally kind and loving boy who was always incredibly well behaved, and it would seem this kind-natured mentality would follow him into adolescence, as according to his parents, he would spend most of his free time working as a member of the Explorer program for the Joseph City Fire District, where he would help out his neighbors on their ranches with odd jobs. Jarrett was also known to have a strong connection to animals, which he demonstrated through his constant pleading to get a dog. And after 7 months, his hard work had finally paid off, as he was rewarded by his parents with a puppy, which he immediately fell in love with. To add to his long list of accolades, Jarrett was also a very respectful individual, especially to his mother, as every single day he would make sure to give her a hug and tell her how much he loved her. So, on the surface, the Brooks family were living the perfect life out in Joseph City, where they enjoyed a wonderful sense of community, maintaining a strong devotion to one another. But this seemingly perfect family would soon reveal itself to be nothing more than a facade, when Jarrett Brooks would suddenly decide to run away from home. On Monday the 3rd of July, the supposedly well-behaved 16-year-old would make the contentious decision to go off-roading with his father's vehicle, despite being told not to. Later that day, Jarrett would return home with a sheepish look on his face, as he was forced to admit that he had not only disobeyed his parents, but he had also broken the CV axle during his drive. Mortified, Jarrett's mother was quick to punish her rebellious son by taking away his cell phone and grounding him from the 4th of July celebrations. But it would seem that Jarrett wasn't too fazed by the terms of his punishment, as he knew his actions were deserving of some form of retribution. That is, until the next day, when he would wake up in the early hours of the morning to ask his mother for forgiveness, as he had previously made plans that he didn't want to miss out on. But despite his desperate pleas, Laura stayed firm and refused his request, stating that he was fully grounded and therefore would be unable to leave the house for any reason other than to walk his dog. Jarrett then apprehensively accepted the terms once again and appeared to walk back to his room, but unbeknownst to his mother, what would happen next would soon leave the entire Brooks family utterly devastated. On Tuesday the 4th of July, Jarrett left his mother's bedroom after learning the full extent of his punishment, but rather than walking back to his room, instead he took a detour to his father's safe where he secretly retrieved a handgun. At approximately 6:30 a.m, Laura Brooks heard her son leave the house as he closed the door behind him. But knowing her son, she assumed he was simply taking his beloved dog out for a walk, given that he had just learned this would be his only form of freedom for the next few days. But after several hours had passed with no sign of Jarrett, his mother started to worry. However, this concern would quickly develop into a full-blown panic when she discovered that Jarrett had actually left the dog behind. Laura then spoke to the rest of the family to see if they had seen the young man, but unfortunately, they too had not heard from Jarrett since the early hours of the morning. So with the ever-increasing concerns surrounding their son's safety, Brian and Laura Brooks decided to officially report Jarrett as a missing runaway to the Navajo County Sheriff's Office. On Wednesday the 5th of July, the official investigation began, with the entire Joseph City community coming together to search for Jarrett, and soon enough, they had a lead. A young man matching Jarrett's description was reportedly seen at a neighbour's ranch on Lacey Lane, walking through the pasture at around 7 AM the same day as his disappearance. According to the witness, he had initially noticed what appeared to be Jarrett Brooks far off in the distance climbing underneath a fence, but after making it to the road on the other side, he then began pacing back and forth. Confused by what he was seeing, the witness then decided to get into his truck to drive over to the spot and inspect the situation, but rather suspiciously, once he arrived no longer than 10 minutes later, Jarrett was nowhere to be seen. Based on this interaction, the witness claimed that he believed Jarrett must have been picked up by somebody, as there was no other way he could have just disappeared in such a short space of time. So with this new evidence, the hunt for Jarrett Brooks only escalated further, given that he could be anywhere by now. Laura then decided to look through his confiscated cell phone to see if she could find any leads as to where he could have gone, later delivering the following statement. "I didn't just check his phone, but also his computer and his tablet. I went through the records from every phone in this house. Phone calls, text messages, search history, but still, I found nothing to show where he was heading." It was then that Jarrett's father, Brian, decided to speak out for the first time. "We don't understand it. He didn't have any attitude, he isn't struggling, he didn't have temper tantrums or any anger issues. He didn't seem depressed at all. There's nothing." So based on their testimony, it appeared that the young man may have hitched a ride with a complete stranger in an attempt to get to a particular destination for reasons unknown. Unfortunately, the only real details that the Brooks family were able to provide was that they knew Jarrett had left the house at around 6:30 AM and that he had only left with his wallet and a pocket knife. But soon enough, there would be a sudden update to the case, when Brian would discover some footage on his security camera that revealed something incredibly disturbing. On Thursday the 6th of July, panic continued to surround the Brooks household, as they had now been without their son for over 48 hours, with severe desperation looming ahead. With little else to examine, Jarrett's father Brian decided to check the internal security camera in his safe room to see if there was any footage that may assist in the search. But rather hauntingly, upon watching the footage, he would discover his 16-year-old son breaking into the safe, stealing a handgun, and proceeding to make sure there were bullets inside, before quietly closing the safe and leaving the room. This discovery would lead to many more possibilities, which included a potential fatality. But despite the clear escalation in the case, the Navajo County Sheriff's Office refused to provide any more resources to the investigation. Baffled by this announcement, Brian took to the media, where he was quoted as saying, "The National Center for Missing and Endangered Children won't do anything because he left with a gun. And an Amber Alert also hasn't been issued because he's considered a runaway, rather than missing and endangered. So I must make it clear, the resources I was able to obtain were through my own connections with law enforcement, as a member of the Joseph City Fire District, and not from the investigation itself." So despite the possible dangers that now surrounded the case, given they were now aware of Jarrett's possession of a handgun, the investigation didn't seem to heat up, with the Brooks family eventually deciding to take the case into their own hands. On Friday the 7th of July, Laura and Brian Brooks created a Facebook page and a GoFundMe to help assist in the search for their missing son, where they were now relying on the online community to provide any further leads. Many people were quick to provide their condolences and sympathies at first, but as the days passed, more and more useful tips started to roll in, with potential sightings of Jarrett being documented all over Arizona, as well as the neighbouring state of Texas. However, after meticulously following up each individual lead, with the help of the local police and a private investigator, the Brooks family were still unable to confirm if he was safe. it soon became clear that every single sighting could not be officially verified, and to make matters worse, many of the leads turned out to be red herrings sent in by internet trolls just looking to cause problems. So with the case starting to turn cold, Brian and Laura Brooks decided to offer a staggering reward of $50,000, which was provided by an anonymous donor, hoping this would trigger more independent searches around the country. But once again, this tactic would fail to spur on any new useful evidence for the case, leaving the family exhausted and distraught. But just when the leads started to completely dry up towards the end of October, there was a sighting of a teenager who apparently looked very similar to Jarrett and was spotted in New Mexico looking disheveled with matted blonde hair. On Tuesday the 24th of October, the New Mexico State Police were called out to the city of Carlsbad to inspect the potential sighting of Jarrett Brooks. The witness had apparently seen this person at a Taco Bell restaurant on the southern side of the city, so the authorities spoke to numerous employees at the establishment in the hopes they could corroborate this sighting. Well, a few of the employees also stated that they saw a rough-looking young man with messy long hair come into the restaurant at around 1:30 AM. So with this, the police set off down the street in the hopes they would find another clue. But after speaking with several other members of the public in the surrounding area, no more sightings could be confirmed, and eventually the lead, which at one point seemed so promising, had gone cold. So, with little information to work with, the police decided to head back to the office empty-handed, and updated Jarrett's family on the situation, leaving them devastated once again. Now unfortunately, this is all we know about the case for now, but there are new posts being made to the Jarrett Brooks Facebook page every day, so hopefully there will be new sightings in the near future. But with the evidence that is available, given that the teenager has now been missing for almost 4 months, many are starting to consider that Jarrett may no longer be with us. However, until we know for sure, we have to keep searching for Jarrett, if anything, to provide some much needed closure for the Brooks family. So with that, let's get into some of the potential theories. Now, before we get into the more controversial theories behind Jarrett's disappearance, as always, I would prefer to start on a more positive front, as it is still very possible that the young man is still alive out there. Firstly, although there haven't been any official proven sightings of Jarrett, the fact so many people came forward in both Arizona and other local states gives me hope that at least one of them could be true. For all we know, he could have very well been seen multiple times by now, but due to his desire to stay hidden, he may have been moving from place to place, preventing his discovery. But if this was the case, why would he want to disappear and move away from his family in the first place? According to his parents, he was an incredibly happy person that was always the life of the party, so from their testimonies it would seem that a decision to run away would be unlikely. But the fact is, we do not know for sure what was really going on in Jarrett's head the day he disappeared, and so he could have just been putting on a front to deceive his parents. Also, we know he was supposed to be grounded at the time, so he could have decided to leave as a rebellious reaction to his mother's authority. Perhaps this perfect life that was described by his family was merely a facade, to hide the fact that he was actually a very unhappy child, and had good reason to disappear. Now, just before I go deeper into this particular theory, I feel it must be said that I have no evidence for this, and it's nothing more than a small possibility at this time. But saying this, could Jarrett's family life, and more accurately his strict religion, have been the cause of his sudden decision to run away from home? Well, as I mentioned at the start of this video, the Brooks family live in a remote Mormon settlement in Arizona known as Joseph City. Now, it's certainly not news to say there have been quite a few controversies to erupt around this particular religion over the years. But rather coincidentally, Jarrett isn't the only 16-year-old Mormon from Arizona to go missing as of late. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, a young man named Blaze Thibaudeau would be reported missing by his father after discovering he had suddenly disappeared. At first, it was feared that Blaze may have been in serious danger. However, it soon became clear that the culprit behind his disappearance was none other than his own mother. Upon investigation, authorities soon discovered that the 49-year-old woman named Spring Thibaudeau was a doomsday prepper and her religion of choice was Mormonism. By all accounts, she would regularly attend ceremonies at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and it was reported that in 2015 she started showing signs of religious extremism. Well, this situation only seemed to develop over the years, with her daughter also adopting the rather controversial beliefs, and then by 2023 she had concocted a plan to steal her son away from his father and escape to Canada. This plan was fortunately thwarted by Alaskan state troopers, who were alerted to the situation and charged her with 2 counts of conspiracy to commit custodial interference. Now, despite this story having a somewhat happy ending, I can't help but see the parallels between Blaise Thibaudeau's case and Jarrett's, as both teenagers seem to have been heavily influenced by the religion practiced by their family. Of course, in Blaise's case, his mother appears to be suffering from some kind of mental issue, as opposed to Laura Brooks, who seems to be of sound mind and comes across incredibly caring in her interviews. But despite this, I still can't help but wonder, could the strict upbringing that comes with being part of a Mormon family have potentially led Jarrett to make the bold decision to run away? Now, let me just say, this is just my own personal opinion, but with the controversy that seems to have followed Mormonism in recent years, I certainly wouldn't be surprised if it at least played a part. But as with every unsolved case, before we make any snap judgments, we must first look at all of the other potential explanations, as for all we know, the Brooks family could be exactly as they seem to be, a happy, healthy, hard-working family that have suffered a great tragedy due to nothing more than a bad decision being made by a misunderstood teenager. But saying this, if Jarrett's disappearance was only ever meant to be a rebellious teenager's attempt to defy his strict but loving parents, is it possible his initial plan to simply blow off some steam was hijacked by a potential predator? Now, on this channel, I have already covered multiple missing person cases that have taken place in Arizona, such as Daniel Robinson or more recently Chelsea Grimm, so if you haven't already, make sure to check those out. I'll leave a link in the description below. But from my extensive research on the topic, one thing that worries me about Jarrett's case is that he seems to have gone missing in an area where many young people are never found. This, along with the fact that he hasn't been officially seen in almost 4 months, tells me that there is a strong possibility he has either been human trafficked or kidnapped by somebody in the area. We know that Jarrett was pacing suspiciously on the road outside a neighbour's ranch, with that witness going on to state that he believed the teenager would have had to have gotten into someone's car, given his abrupt vanishing in the space of just 10 minutes. Also, his parents confirmed that Jarrett did not have his phone, and after checking the messages and phone calls, it was clear that he had not planned to meet anyone on the day he disappeared. So, is it possible he was picked up by a person who was just driving by? Well, either that, or he has a secret phone that his parents don't know about. But even so, the fact he hasn't been seen in 4 months would imply that whoever picked him up is now hiding him from the world. Could a family member be behind this, similar to the Blaise Thibaudeau case? Or could he have met someone online and agreed to meet them that day, only to find out they were not who they said they were? With the evidence available, we just don't know for sure. But until we have more information on Jarrett's case, we have to try and keep it alive, and do everything we can to bring this child to safety. Now, just before I end the video, I wanted to clarify that I am aware there are several other working theories that are being discussed, such as Jarrett catching a train to a faraway state, or the witness who saw him on the day he disappeared somehow being involved, or even the possibility of the young man suffering a potential accident out in the wilderness. So if you would like me to make a follow-up video where I discuss these theories in more detail, please let me know by hitting the like button, and I will get working on the next video right away. Anyway, on that note, thank you so much for watching, and if you have any theories of your own which may help explain what could have happened to Jarrett Brooks, please leave your ideas in the comments down below. But until then, make sure to check out the videos on screen now, where I discuss some of the other suspicious missing person cases which have also occurred in the state of Arizona.